Jump right in.
So, hello to you all. I've got the wonderful Anna Howie staring back at me, which is always a good sign. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm good, thank you. It's lovely to be here,
It
loving a
is
chat.
lovely to be here with you. The sun is shining, and we're going to talk music, we're going to talk life, we're going to give everybody an insight into your incredible journey. So,
Yeah,
are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So I think it would be really fun to talk about firstly how we met, because there's definitely a trend emerging with the people that I feature on this podcast in terms of all the naughty people always congregate at the back, like an education day. And
Yeah,
I think you arrived late, if I remember.
made myself go. Definitely I was feeling like, oh, is this a bad idea? I don't know, what I'm walking into, but I really need to learn how to write a song. It all looked a bit scary with people at the front ready to do presenting and
Yeah.
people sat down, but you were a lovely face, and I thought, do you know what, I think I'll stay at the back. Just listen with this guy, because it looks like that's where the fun is.
Set the scene a little bit. Like, you'd been kind of performing in your previous life, you'd been an actress, you'd been doing all these bits and pieces, but I don't think people realize that you googled that, like, you were 40, weren't you, when you first decided, I'm going to actually write songs, but you had
Yeah.
been singing and performing.
So I'd been working as a kind of function singer. I loved it and I had some great times, and I did a lot of traveling and I really enjoyed it. And that was all good, but I was definitely coming to the end of its life. I'd kind of I suppose, just sung one cover too many. And I was also, at the same time, I had young children at that point, but I was also writing or adapting scripts for a theatre company.
Mm.
So I was kind of like singing in the daytime, singing in the nighttime and writing stuff in the daytime.
Mm.
And it kind of I just started to think, oh, I think I might like to write something to sing. That would be novel.
You'd been used to putting other roles, like stepping into other roles, and then finally you find this new vehicle to actually say what you want to say rather than having to put on these other hats, which is
Yeah.
still fun. One of the things I always notice from seeing you perform, you're a real show person in terms of how you deliver it, but I can imagine for you that would have been really liberating to actually find your voice and actually have permission to talk about the things that you care about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if at that stage I was thinking, I've got lots to say. I don't know if it was about that. I do remember going and sitting in the back room of a pub and
Yeah.
watching a woman with a guitar at the front, and she was singing her own music, and something just clicked in my brain, and I thought, that's what I'm doing. That's
Yeah.
what I need to do next. I didn't play the guitar at that point. I think if I could go back 15 years and tell the person who was just starting to write stuff, think what you've got to say, because that's actually really important, that there is something there, and that you're not just writing the song for the sake of writing a song and having your name on the bottom.
For you talk about picking up the instrument was actually more of a necessity, wasn't it? You picked that instrument up so late in life, whereas many people, their first exposure to playing an instrument will be a child. That blew my mind. What was that like for you, learning something new?
And it's difficult to write a song if you don't play anything. It was a lot of gigs in holding a guitar where I started to feel comfortable. I always felt like someone had handed me their baby. It felt so unnatural. I'd been singing with a microphone in my hand, moving up and down the stage for a lot of years, and then suddenly to have this thing and my fingers not do what I wanted them to, and all that stuff, that took a long time to kind of get to the point where, and even now I'm like, I feel a little bit of a fraud.
To be honest with you, I tried to play the guitar. When I got to the bar chords, I was like, nope, not for me. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to get someone else's hands in. One of my favourite writers is an American woman called Mary Gauthier. Writes missives, like just things that she's learned along the time. She puts them on her website. They're really worth checking out. But one of my favourite ones of hers is, she says, even if I get up and walk to the stage, I'm walking to the stage and I fall flat on my face, I know I'm going to stand up and I'm going to keep walking. When you kind of get into that mindset, it's actually really liberating, because you're like, it doesn't matter actually what goes wrong. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to get to the end of this gig and then I'm going to do another one. So it's really, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. It's fine.
You were singing, actually performing with a band, then learn to play an instrument, you learn to write your own songs. There's a very key kind of theme that runs throughout all of this, which is actually about resilience. You've come to this, quite late in life as such.
Use the word resilient. My husband would change it a little bit to relentless.
Relentless. You are relentless in terms of like booking your shows, going out there and doing it, going out there. I mean, I don't know that many singer-songwriters that are out on the circuit so much, doing ticketed gigs. And, I know it's not easy. I know there must be days when you're like sick of talking about what you're doing. But that to me shows your strength and how much it means to you. One question I asked you before was like, what keeps you going when times are hard? You actually turned that on its head and said, actually, when times are hard, I pick up the instrument.
Really helps me. It's so easy to get caught up in all the stuff, like have I done a TikTok this morning? Am I doing my Instagram reels? Checked on that booking for a gig? Have I? There's so much stuff around it that's going on all the time. And you're right, sometimes it does get really overwhelming and you think, is this pointless? Or something can happen, like I've got one venue that I'm doing a gig for. Because they're in charge of a certain amount of tickets, they send me updates like every other day on how ticket sales are going. It's like you get this big into your inbox, and like you look at it, you go, "Oh, that's a 0 there next to the ticket sales. That's a 0," and then it comes in the next day, and it's still a 0, and you kind of be looking at it thinking, "Fucking hell," well, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But that's the moment when I have to like go and literally pick up my guitar and play something, because I have to remind myself that that's the bit I love.
There's this real emphasis on singer-songwriters and artists actually becoming salespeople constantly. You've had to then, pick up all of these social media channels to make sure that you're engaging people. I do understand what it's like when you feel like you're just constantly hustling all the time. This is really testament to you that you're not only creating the music, you're also the salesperson, you're the promoter, you're a parent.
It's a lot of hats to wear, and a lot of the jobs, really all of the jobs that don't involve singing with a guitar, I would happily hand over to anybody else. I mean, it's really easy to let all the stuff take over, and then you realise that you haven't written a new song for ages because all of your focus has been over here. I think it's really important to try and keep that balance.
I can really relate to is that sometimes when I am having that struggle, same as you, I remember that one of my real goals from becoming a full-time musician was to be able to have the time to journal and to actually have the time to write. And it's like, that is a real privilege. And that's something that I've been trying to do like every day, like just journaling out. Even your latest offering, we shall say, Good for Roses. When I first heard the title, I thought, oh no, I'm good for roses, as in I don't need them. But it's so funny now, obviously I realised that the biggest fertilizers in life are struggles and difficult things.
It's called Good for Roses because I realised as I was writing the songs that I hoped were going to go on it, as they were coming like off the conveyor belt, albeit quite slowly, I realised that, that a lot of them were about the good stuff, finding the good stuff in the bad stuff. And so ideally I'd have called the album Shit is Good for Roses. it was advised against it, so I didn't. But that, in my brain, that's what it's called, because that's what it is. It's about good things coming out of hard times and about beautiful flowers growing in shit.
Is that a conscious mindset for you?
I think I am naturally quite a positive person. My dad was a very positive person, and I think I'm quite like him in that respect. My natural game is to kind of try and pull things back to the positive side. But I also think it's really easy to forget, because obviously what we're trying to do is hard, is to forget that actually it's like you just said, you just used the word, it's a real privilege to be doing this. You know, I'm doing kind of what I want to do, and that's a treat in itself. I do think it's really easy to forget that, get bogged down in the fact that it's really hard and that you're not maybe quite where you wanted to be that day or whatever. But actually, just to remember it is a privilege.
I know humour for you is such a like a staple in with your personality, and like flittering back to a little writing session that you and I had. Like, this is just before COVID hit. And I just remember, I think we were struggling or we'd got stuck, and then something set us off and we were just roaring with laughter.
You can really like get messages across with humour, I think. My song Peas is probably the song that I'm most known for. People at festivals say to me, "Oh, you're the Peas lady." You know, it's like that's the one that people remember. And it's about being empowered as a woman. It's about being, you know, still feeling like you've got something going on in your 50s. That's what it's about. But the fact that there's a humorous line that gets you in there, I think if you can hit it right and, you know, and get the humor in, I think it's a really good way of getting a message across.
It's inclusive, isn't it? Humour in the best respect is to get people in. Your first kind of access to music, you talk about the vinyl collection at home. Was it your dad? Was he funny as well? I'm just wondering.
He was funny.
Yeah.
He was funny. Yeah, he was a funny man. I think you'd probably say he was jolly. You know, he was just kind of a jolly person. He didn't sing much or amazingly well, but he really fancied himself as a conductor. So if something came on if music came into the room, he would suddenly like tap something and then he'd be ready, you know, to conduct a whole orchestra in this thing. So I'm a bit sad that he never got the chance to live out that dream.
Did he ever get to see you perform?
Well, I sang at my wedding. So he did see me there with a band.
Yeah. Do you feel in some ways, and I feel this because, you know, I lost my dad last year, and one of the things is that although we had like quite a difficult relationship, I really do feel like I can see elements of his humour and his, you know, wit and things within my songwriting. And I feel like there's a really sort of special thing about that person's memory. You know, certainly for you, your dad was such a pivotal, you know, when you talked about him before, I really got that sense of he'd unwittingly encouraged your creativity and your musicianship.
Yeah, I think he did. He was always very keen for me and everyone else to be who they authentically were, you know. So he would have loved all of this journey. He would have loved seeing kind of just me learning about it all and striving to get better and all that sort of stuff. He would have really enjoyed that, I think. And it is lovely. I talk about him a lot. A lot of my songs have bits of him in, you know, whether I'm talking about him directly or just at the essence of him. So he's kind of, I do feel like he's very much part of what's going on.
And I just think that's really beautiful because, you know, there's such a fondness in the way that, you know, you feel like he's still part of everything. You know, I know it's a bit of a cliche.
If I'm faced with an audience and we're singing about this, you know, I kind of say we can't avoid grief. Everybody in the room knows it, you know, knows it really well. So we might as well kind of do it together.
Yeah,
we might as well talk about it together and sing about it together and all of that, because it's the one thing you can guarantee has touched everybody, every single person in the room.
Part of it is also your duty being a singer-songwriter. I think you have to take people to every single extreme of emotion. One question that I asked you was a little bit about, things that you struggles that you face sort of like day in, day out. One of the things in there, you were talking about like some difficult gigs, technical problems. It made me laugh because I was performing at a wedding the week before last, and I offered, kind person that I am, to chair the speeches for the client.
Oh Lord.
But the thing is, it's remembering people's names. So we got to
Oh
like the third one along, which was like the best man. And I don't know why, but I'd like called him Andrew. I was like, oh, so here's Andrew. Everybody in the room is like turned around and is laughing at me. I just had to style it out and be like, yeah, that's what I call you. That's your
yeah.
pet. You just got to think on your feet. In your performing life, some difficulties that you faced in terms of either things going wrong, funny things that will make people laugh.
When you're talking about weddings and stuff, that takes me back, because there you are responsible for someone else's, the best day of their life.
Pressure.
I found weddings hugely stressful, I have to say, more than anything else, because, well, I always found that there was a mother-in-law somewhere who was not going to let things go. So that was always a bit tricky.
I'm literally so uncomfortable now because I can picture this mother-in-law.
I've had red stilettos on that have gone through the stage.
Oh
no! So literally both heels have gone through. So the only thing I can do is step out of the shoes, so I then carried on the gig with no shoes on, but the shoes right in the middle of the stage, just stuck there.
Work it out.
A couple of weeks ago, the battery went in my guitar in the middle of a song.
Oh, no.
And then it just sort of like starts making this terrible noise, and you're thinking, where is that coming from? I did one wedding years ago, and the bride got so arseholed.
Oh, really?
And then wanted to sing like every song.
Oh, no.
So she was literally like coming onto the stage, trying to grab the mic. So you ended up kind of almost having a bit of a fight with the bride. It was like...
not having any of that. Do you know what I say now? Just no. It's the same if people say, can I have the mic? I just say no, and I don't even give them an answer. Where, like, when it's been in like a dodgy mic stand and then the mic starts getting limp. So you're kind of like, this microphone is just like, bye.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff,
You've got to call it out, though, and actually include the audience. So when it goes wrong, I always just think you've got to be like, yeah, we planned this.
I've actually had gigs that, when I look back, I've had gigs where something's gone wrong in the start. The mic hasn't come on, or something, something's happened, and it's actually really helped me. It's like been a bit of a thing where you're like, oh, we've had a bit of a false start, but now we're off and nobody died. It's okay, we can like crack on.
When you're a singer-songwriter, it's this expectation that you have to give people the secret behind the song. One thing that can be really difficult that I think people don't realize is if the song that you've written is about somebody that is at the gig or whatever, I have to like have like loads of different variations of it, and I try not to give the true story away because it can be really awkward, right? But your real kind of goal is to kind of get a Grammy, which I love, which aim high.
I think the biggest thing for me is kind of just the striving to write a better song. Every time I sit down with a large piece of paper, I know you use Post-it notes, I use a large bit of paper. When I sit down with that, I'm like, right, here's the potential for something good. The only person who's going to fuck this up now is me.
I mean, one thing that does strike me, though, Anna, if I'm being really honest, is that you do sound a little bit like your biggest critic.
I am.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That can be really, I definitely am my biggest critic. And I kind of think, you know, like even if on social media, if you ever get any negative vibes coming back at you,
Why not?
I sometimes think, do these people think that I haven't thought of this a million times
I
already in
know.
my
I'm
head?
always like, I just love just being like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, because I talk about imposter syndrome a lot. And the way that I visualize it is like having somebody in the back seat of your car when you're driving, like just giving you a commentary all the time. I always think it's good to just be aware of it. And it's only when it becomes destructive, it's okay to actually just want to strive to do better.
I find it really difficult watching myself back on anything. Like I find it really difficult watching videos because I instantly go to, well,
Yeah.
what did you do that for? Like why did you sound like that at that moment? Why are you playing that chord? The whole way through, this is the dialogue in my head. But actually, it's the best way to learn because you look at stuff and you go, all right, I didn't even know I did that.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same like being in the studio and hearing your comps back.
Yeah.
When you're doing vocal recording, and I just try as much as possible to get out of my own head
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, that's what you're doing is getting your ideas, thoughts, feelings out of your head. The
Yeah.
least thing that you want to do is then go back into your head and ruminate on it.
Can really slow you down,
Yeah.
if you're like constantly picking yourself apart.
You and I have obviously written together, we've collaborated. You've done a couple of my camps now.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what it's like, obviously, for being somebody who writes on their own, coming in and collaborating with other people, and what is different about that to you.
I think it can't be underestimated really. And
Mm.
I've definitely got into a bit of a habit recently of writing more on my own. But
Yeah.
then when I do collaborate, every time I think you need to do this because it just takes you out of your comfort zone and it pushes you to somewhere a little bit different. And we constantly want to be evolving, don't we? So to have like people in the room who are giving you a new direction or a new insight, a new perspective is brilliant. But also the thing about the camps is, which is so lovely, is that you literally sit round with people and you don't have to explain anything. Everyone's doing the same. Everyone gets it. It's like you're just sitting in this room with totally like-minded people who love music and want to write a great song. And it's just a fantastic environment.
Do you know what I think a lot of it is I feel that people don't have to mask. I feel like they can sit and just be, if they want to just be silly or put a, cardboard box on their head and hollow out the holes and, not that people do that. But I mean, they've got permission to do that because, everybody understands the struggle. I would say that kind of support for me, just to be around people who are kind of having that struggle. But there's
Yeah.
that kind of unspoken thing, isn't it? That, you just understand we're all having that difficulty to articulate what we want to say and what we feel.
Yeah. And just to be able to have that dedicated time as well, where
Yeah.
it's all about the songwriting and you can just focus on that with people who are also just want to focus on that. It's just always a magic few days, I think.
For me, having that accountability and just knowing that I'm going to write for those 2 or 3 days, there's that anticipation of clearing some space to do it.
I've always taken away so much from retreats, and I love them. And I'm just, I often can't get onto yours, but I enjoyed every one that I've done. It's been fabulous.
Yeah. Like you, I'm putting out a collection of songs, so an album, we would say.
Yeah.
I just didn't even want to say album then. I was like, oh, collection of songs. It's an album. And one thing that, having played a few songwriter nights recently and got back into that habit, I actually realised that it's quite difficult to actually share some of these songs because for you talk about turning your resilience into something beautiful. For me, there was a song called 7 Times, and it's about leaving a coercive relationship. And I realized that there are other songs of experiences that people have all been through that it's a pleasure to share with people because you know that people have been through that experience. But I think there's also the flip side of it, that it's actually really difficult with some songs. Are there any ones that you have written that are sometimes hard to perform?
Yeah, there are certainly ones about my dad,
Yeah.
about grief, that were really hard to write. So the writing process seemed to take a very long time. Really hard to play in that you kind of, you couldn't. I certainly, I've got a song called Angels Among Us, which is all about my dad, and I've got a song called Pull Up a Chair, which is all about my dad. And the writing of those, I honestly thought, I don't think I'm ever going to get through these live. I get halfway and it would all be over. I can't cry and sing at the same time. And it was just like, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to get through this. And then I did do it live a couple of times and I did cry in the middle and somehow sort of dragged myself to the end. And then it just sort of got a bit easier. And I've got quite a few of those. I've got one about a relationship, probably not dissimilar to yours, that was really difficult and I was in for way too long. And I've got one about that. Again, it was really hard to write. I avoided it for ages. I thought, I'm not going to go there. Why put myself through it? Also, for me, like yours sounds recent, but for me, that relationship was 35 years ago.
I think a lot of it is I don't think it matters in terms of like when it happened, because it's irrelevant. It's more of a case of actually reliving it. And I think this is the thing, like I almost gave myself a bit of a hard time for that, but then I realized it's like, do you really want to relive these things again? I mean, I know we look at them retrospectively, but I think it's, it's a kind of like the double-edged sword of being a singer-songwriter, isn't it? That you have to sort of give people your intestines all the time.
Absolutely. And but the thing about those songs that were so hard to write and that I avoided for a long time and all of that is that when you get in front of an audience, they're the ones that hit the hardest every time, because it's like you've gone to a place you didn't want to go to, you've tried to avoid it, it's been very raw and kind of hard to get out, and you bring that to people and they're also feeling that about something. So they're the ones that I see connect with people, and I see the reactions, and people come up to me afterwards and say,
that resonates.
Thank you for doing that, or that song really hit me hard. And definitely
the
ones I've found the hardest to write have been the hardest hitting, for sure.
Yeah. I always just laugh at this cliche of a singer-songwriter, that you're there with your guitar and you're like, this one's about my heart being broken, all of this. But one thing that I like about you, and actually it kind of inspired me quite a lot, is that you also sing about other people's stories too. We seek out these new experiences in our life, whether, naturally we go through grief, we go through pain, we go through love. But for me, I almost missed a trick for so long that during my travels, I met so many people with interesting stories. And, to be able to take somebody else's emotions and then help them process it.
And that's the seed that then carries on into the audience, where you can see them getting it because they've got that too, that thing that makes them feel like that. I think other people's stories are really important, because otherwise you're just like, I mean, I get to a point, I think, well, I've got nothing interesting has happened.
Yeah, what's going on in my life these days?
Certainly when I was like doing the school run and stuff, those days are done for me now. But, back in the day when you're kind of like getting 3 children into school and you're just doing a school run, you're like, what interesting have I done today? I can't think of anything. So I think then it was really important, especially important then, for me to be able to latch into what was going on for other people.
Your husband and your children, what do they think about this crazy life that you lead?
I think they're so used to it now, and they're hugely supportive. My husband was at one of my gigs this weekend. He certainly doesn't come to them all, but he does come to some now and again. And he just sort of stands at the back, and then he just kind of like tells me how it is, and it's just great to have him there. He's been brilliant, and my kids as well. They come to a lot of stuff. My daughter sang with me for quite a while, and still will if I pay them. No, they will. Now and again, they will.
Working on new stuff?
Yes, writing new stuff. As a band, our plan was very much that we were going to start slotting new songs into the tour that we're doing now before we record them, because we realized last year we released Good for Roses. We recorded it at Real World Studios, which is Peter Gabriel's place just outside Bath, which was
nice
fantastic.
name drop there, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. Dong. We recorded it there, but we realised kind of at the end of the tour that actually we were playing things really differently.
Yeah.
Because we played them so much to how they were at the beginning when we recorded them.
Yeah.
So this time we're trying to like slot new songs in. So we're doing kind of like a couple of new songs in each set.
What would you say is the best bit of advice that you could give to somebody who wants to pursue this kind of artistry, this kind of life that you lead?
Probably it would be just to think of it as a marathon, not a sprint.
A lot of the things that you've done have been bold moves. Like everything has been a bold move. Putting yourself into the arena and, standing into that space and making space and time for it.
You have got to take risks, because otherwise you just kind of stay still. And if you're not taking risks, you're not moving on to the next bit. You're not taking yourself out of your comfort zone. Writing Peas felt like a risk. I wrote it in lockdown, and I remember sitting down and thinking, are people going to think this is funny? I don't know. Is this funny? Is it funny, or is it cliche? What is it? I don't know what it is. It felt like a big risk. It felt like something I wouldn't maybe usually do.
And I think that's the key to everything, is that, even from that moment you Googled how to write a song, you obviously bought a guitar and learned to play it. It's like, unless you make that risk or that bold move, you will just constantly stay in the zone. So just to summarize, what's next for you? You've got the remainder of the tour.
Album's a year old this week.
Year old.
I'm hoping to go back into the studio for round 3. We've got another tour being put together for the autumn. So,
great. So lots keep you out of mischief.
Yeah.
Great. So Hannah, it's been an absolute joy spending this afternoon with you.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
It's so lovely that you're doing this.
Yeah, it just kind of makes it real, doesn't it? And it's like, you are like an archetype of a wanderer. Like, it's you're pursuing your dream, you're doing what makes you happy. You've got a very interesting journey and story. And I was just mind blown by all of the things I didn't know about you. The biggest thing for me is just that, you started writing songs at 40 after Googling how to do it. And I just think that's such a unique story. And I just think lots of people will connect with you over that. And I'm quite sure that you'll inspire a lot of people as well.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you. Listen, aren't I going to ask you some questions?
Yeah, well, we'll have a little break, shall we, before we go to that? Pause the recording.
A little break. All right, then.
Hello and welcome back to the Wanderers podcast. I am here with the amazing Anna Howie. We've both had a wee, so just for context, I tend to record the podcasts like together because trying to keep the content flowing, nothing else flowing. Ha ha ha.
Hey.
But we indeed, Anna and I had just been chatting for like the last hour and a half, so she's probably sick of being questioned. So I'm actually going to flip over and make her the guest host.
Yes.
Guest host.
Good. I've got lots of questions written on my Post-it.
Good. Well, as I would say with the tag, let's jump right in.
So I feel like you are balancing a lot of things.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about all the things you're balancing.
First thing is being singer and band manager of a wedding band.
Yeah.
And that I fell into completely by accident. But it's a wonderful job because it just gives me the kind of time and just to do all the creative things. I've set up Ian's Tracks, which is my travel and music brand. and I run writing camps for wonderful singer-songwriters like yourself. And yeah, so really all of the different parts of my music making, they all kind of fit together, which is nice. Yeah, so managing that is a lot. It is a lot of plate spinning, but I feel like they all kind of bleed in together a bit, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Band management that you do,
Yeah.
do you front man for that band always, or do you put other singers in sometimes?
So I have in the past put a little stand in, but I think when you're advertising your band, they do want the singer that they see in the promo.
Yeah,
I love doing it and I'm happy to be there because a lot of it is kind of dealing face to face with the clients.
yeah.
I'm really passionate about it.
And we
I
talked about this before, didn't we, about the pressure of a wedding day?
oh,
Like, that I guess it would be quite difficult for you to hand that over to someone else.
if you're a singer, you can go and do your best job like in front of the band. Obviously chatting to the client's a huge thing, but
Yeah,
that's a lot of responsibility on one person. Certainly I think for the foreseeable I'm enjoying it. I don't dread going to work, which is great.
yeah, which is really good. And it keeps everything working, doesn't it? Keeps your voice working, keeps your music kind of energies going, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. You're doing all of that balancing with ADHD.
Yes.
Is that recent that you've been diagnosed with that?
I recently contracted ADHD through spending too much time with songwriters. So yeah, the diagnosis came like 2 years ago. I guess the one thing that I've realized now is that a lot of things make sense in
Makes
terms of
sense.
like the bigger picture. It is just a constant struggle sometimes just to be ordered in my chaos. And I think
Yeah,
one thing people don't realize is that they see somebody who achieves lots of things, does a lot of travel, keeps a business going, spins all of these plates, but I am so disordered and it's so invisible to people that they can't quite attach that label to what they see. But
yeah,
because it's such an insular experience for people who don't really know about ADHD, I think it's important to kind of just break it down a little bit. So there's three parts: impulsivity, hyperactivity, and inattention.
yeah,
And most people have characteristics of each of those groups. For me, I have the real struggle with concentration and focus. Hyperactivity, I can't sit still, can't sit and enjoy a film, which is a struggle. The things that I want to do, my brain just doesn't have enough of the chemicals that it needs to be able to sort of fully immerse myself in that. And then impulsivity again, travel's great for that because you've got a blank canvas, but
mm,
obviously that is great in sales to be impulsive. All three of them together can be very difficult to kind of manage.
yeah, yeah. Tiring. Are you
Tiring,
tired?
very tiring. And then another thing is, again, not to kind of moan and be like woe is me and have a pity party. My brain can't regulate melatonin, for example. So my sleep cycle is terrible because my
Yeah,
brain just can't actually process the transmitters to help me get a good night's sleep. So I have to just constantly adapt to a little bit of a deficit. Well, I mean, it is
yeah,
a deficit by
yeah.
nature.
Is it a superpower as well, though? Is it like because you have ADHD that you get so much, you've got so many things going on?
That is like, when somebody tries to make you feel good about a shit sandwich, they're like, oh well, you've got a superpower. It's like, no, I don't. I mean, it's horrendous and it's so invisible to people that they just don't. A neurotypical person would never understand what it's like to be neurodivergent. There are superpowers within it, but they are things that we learn. Your The superpowers are actually how we've learned to adapt to not
Yeah.
be able to do certain things. So they're not, unfortunately, inherent magical gifts that we've got. They are the struggle and just learning new ways to kind of manage it, really.
A drive, though.
I think the drive as the person and
Mm,
the attributes of it are the condition, because I think the drive for me, regardless of having ADHD, the drive for me, I've always had that hunger in my belly to
Mm.
travel the world, do what I love doing. But I do
Yeah.
think that I've probably got more of a drive because it's a bit more of a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so where was the last place you visited?
So my last trip, now this is again working memory, I can't remember. The last trip, well, last year I went to Bulgaria, which is really, really cool. I liked that a lot. I wasn't kind of expecting to enjoy it so much, but I basically ended up at this little hostel, had a courtyard of roses. I just met this funny group of people in the hostel room. There was like a couple of Ukrainians, this girl from France, and we just ended up I just ended up cooking dinner for everyone every night. Spent most of the trip just sat in the courtyard yabbering with these Ukrainians, and we just had so much fun.
Yeah, lovely.
And just kind of just putting the worlds to rights, really, because everybody had sort of got their own little kind of dream that they were working towards. One of the Ukrainians was a personal trainer. One of the French girls, she was studying and working at the same time, so kind of had that affinity of just being present and enjoying the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
And what is your, out of all the places you've been, where would you say has inspired the most music in you?
That's a really difficult one because music for me is inspired by the people. So it's not necessarily the place, although
Yeah.
the setting does really help. I mean, I would say that there was one particular trip that I did when I was in the transition of leaving my office job to do music full time. Basically, just used buses to traverse Eastern Europe. So I kind of got a flight into Croatia and then went through like the Balkans, and Montenegro was very, very special. I just met these characters on this trip that I'm still in touch with now. But one thing I would say is that wherever I go, this might be a travel thing, but people love to share their stories.
Yeah.
And I remember this one American guy that I met. He was fascinated by the fact I was doing music full time. So he was like, "Can I take you for a coffee and find out how you did it?" So we sat in Montenegro in the old city of Kotor, just kind of having coffee at this Irish bar. And he said, "Look, can I tell you something I've not told anyone before?" So I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." And he said, "Well, look, I was in a really bad place about a year ago, and I live like sort of like in one of the central states of America." And he's like, "One day I just had enough and I took myself down to where like the railroad track was." And he said that I was walking along the rails of that track and I could hear the train coming in the distance. And he's like, "I just basically given up." And he said that in that moment he found God. So he
Wow.
said that he heard the train coming in the distance, and it was like something told him to step off the tracks. And as he did, the train just like roared past. And then he ended up visiting a church and becoming a Christian. And, for him, he found purpose. So it was just such a privilege for someone to share that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So me being the songwriter that I am was like, the railroad track, huh? Now, this does pose a question, which is writing a song about it a betrayal of trust? I think if you reference their name, it is, but I suppose in some ways, like, I know you were like, no, but I suppose morally, I feel like it's a bit like, ooh.
Yeah, you'd have to obviously keep all names
Yeah.
out. Being at that in that desperate moment and something good, it's good for roses, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that worst moment and then something good comes from it. That's the
Yeah.
universal.
When you meet people who are traveling, they arrive as themselves, as they are, without any preconceptions about
Yeah.
anything else in their life.
Yeah.
And they give you something that, but when people travel, they offer you such a special insight into how they think, how they feel. And I would say that's probably one of the main reasons I love travel so much, because you just get this absolute insight into people, and they're more honest because they believe they're probably not going to see you again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a special thing. So it's the people that are the more inspiring than the place.
I mean, one place in particular, when I was leaving my corporate job, I did a trip across the Middle East. So I went through Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. When I was in Israel, I was reaching the end of my trip. I had that kind of, I knew I couldn't go back to an office job. I just knew I couldn't do it. This thing happened. I was sat by this kind of fountain in Tel Aviv, and I wish I could have said it was somewhere like Jerusalem or somewhere that was really spiritual. And you could see the flipping McDonald's in the background. But as I sat there with my backpack, just perched on the edge of the fountain, I got this overwhelming sense that I was in completely the right place at the right time. And this feeling just came all over my body. And I had this kind of connective moment where I was like, oh my God, I know exactly who I am. I'm completely as far away from home as I can get. And I don't have any stability in my life at the moment. Everything is a constraint, but I feel free and alive. And I think that's one of the things that probably made me leave my job, because I think I just discovered that, I was not, I knew I wasn't happy, but I'd found sort of like, somewhere to land.
Yeah. And was that the moment that you did leave your job? I mean, did you go back after that trip?
I went back and I just wasn't the same. And I
Yeah.
went back and I think it must have been about 6 weeks. And I just remember walking in and suddenly everything just looked really hideously fake. Like even the plants in the office, everything just looked superficial. And I knew that I had to leave because there were some of my colleagues that were saying, oh, you stayed in a hostel. Did you get your stuff stolen? Why did
Right.
you go to the hostel? And I'm like, oh my God, I've sat on the flipping roof of this hostel putting the world to rights, and you're so closed in your thinking. And I always relay this moment because I was a project manager and we were doing this kind of big meeting. And there's, you can picture this in the boardroom. We're sat around this table, and in the background, you've got all these screens and things. And so I'm stood there with the whiteboard and like a marker, and I'm just thinking, all I want to draw is a willy on the board. Like, I'm in the wrong job. I'm in the wrong job. And it was like,
Did
it just
you?
like landed. I was like, oh my God, I'm complete fraud. I'm not a project manager. I don't care about this project. I couldn't give a damn about it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't care. How am I
Did
going
you
to make
did you
it?
draw a willy on the board, Ian?
No, I didn't. But I tell you what, I wish I had done. And it would have made for a much better story if I'd have got a permanent marker and just drawn a phallus on the board.
Yeah,
That camaraderie of the colleagues that I worked with, even to this day, the friendships are still there. They're so supportive. And somebody who was quite senior in that organization, because I kind of left under a bit of a cloud, she found me on LinkedIn and sent me a message and said, I just want you to know how proud I am that you've gone to pursue your dream. She
yeah,
said, the truth be told, I'm, the VP in this department, and all I want to do is go out and, do aid work. And it's like, you've actually really inspired me. So keep doing what you're doing. And I thought, oh my
great.
God, you've actually gone to the trouble to find me on LinkedIn and send
Yeah.
me a message.
So what we were talking about earlier about being lucky, just it being a privilege to be able to do the kind of thing that is in your heart you should be doing, because so many people have things they would love to be doing, but there are loads of reasons why not. But so how's it been for you since leaving that job?
Well, funny enough, you should say that, but I actually feel somewhat full of regret. I feel like I grieve most of my adult life because I felt like life began, at 30 plus when I left that job. I feel a sense of, having missed a huge part of my young adult life. So I am filled with absolute joy and wonder, and absolutely, don't take it for granted. But I do have a pang of regret, and I think I owe it to myself to honor, that kind of sliding doors moment. What would life have been like for Ian, who stayed in that job,
Yeah, yeah. It's a bold move, isn't it? We were talking about taking risks earlier. It's a bold move, but obviously one that was right for you.
That's the biggest risk I've ever took. And do you know what I had to do? I had to uncondition my thinking, because
Yeah.
I'd been brought up to be like, you can't leave a paid job. You just can't, not without something to go to. Even a lot of these, people like Abraham Hicks and Tony Robbins, they all talk about, bold moves and the universe and all of that. But ultimately, had I not taken those risks, I would never. I mean, had I not ended up in, the Middle East on my own on a backpacking trip, I would never have had the confidence to do that. But I think a lot of it is also impulsivity. We talk about ADHD. There was a huge part of that was impulsive, but
Yeah.
I'd honestly, I can only liken it to being at the edge of the precipice and being like, you either jump or someone's going to push you off. And I was more than ready to go. I'd been, peering out the fourth floor window, just constantly daydreaming. So when, my time came, I was like, no, I'm ready to go,
Yeah.
I wasn't just gonna, I just would not accept that was my life. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Go back to young Ian,
Yeah.
about to go into his corporate job. What would you say to him?
I'd be like, Sheila, turn around. Unbeknown to me, I was struggling, in a really bad way. I was not happy. Would I have listened, Anna? Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'd actually be like, oh my God, like the future. I'd probably be like, how can I make us rich?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had the vulnerability with people. And I think I'm learning more and more to be more vulnerable with people, because I crave that when I watch television and I watch reality TV and things like that. I crave to see people's vulnerability. I was told by my singing teacher I was never going to be a singer. She took me aside after the lesson, and she was this kind of very posh kind of South Coast woman in a place called Worthing, which is,
I know
if you've ever
Worthing.
visited Worthing, you're never going to be a classical singer, and you've just not got the range. So, just try and stick to what you're good at, these other things. And she used to, in the singing lessons, like, because my posture was bad, she used to like poke me in the back, like try to get my shoulders back. But I remember saying to her, I was like, I don't want to sing classical music. I want to sing pop music. I'm a pop writer. And I remember I did a show at college with all of these musicians, and I just wish that she had been there in the audience, and I could have been like. But I think it's that kind of, I knew she was wrong, so I didn't
Yeah.
care. I
Yeah.
was like, actually, you're just a cantankerous old bitch, and
Yeah.
I don't even enjoy your lessons. The only thing I like about your lessons is your dogs that are on the floor. That was the only bit of the lesson that I enjoyed.
I mean, it doesn't sound fun, and it doesn't sound like over encouraging.
The ones that have really helped me have been the ones that have seen my potential. And there
Yeah.
was a few, like Carleen Anderson, who sang with the Brand New Heavies. She
Yeah.
taught me at BIM. Could do something to my confidence. She'd be like, baby, when you sing, you got to drop your jaw. She would just be so nurturing.
Yeah.
And then same, I had this other teacher, Mr. Precious, and he's probably watching this.
Was that his real name?
Precious
Mr.
by
Precious?
name, precious by nature. But
Wow.
I used to write poetry, and he used to, on his lunch breaks, would come back and read it and critique it, and give things like rhythm in the prose. He would give his time, and then I had another teacher at sixth form college. Again, would make time to sit and help me, because I taught myself to play the piano.
Mm.
But I
Yeah.
think having people that you look up to that can see potential in you that you don't know you have,
Yeah.
has been, hugely pivotal for me, I would say. Somebody in the music industry that I really looked up to used to just make comments about my voice, as in, I really like it when you don't sing in your high register. And it was always like a little bit of a backhanded compliment. Set up this function band and was a part of it. We auditioned for like one of the big, they were like one of the big agents. I got some, pretty harsh critique about, going out into the audience and, interacting with people. And that's now why people book my band.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting, isn't it? How
Yeah.
subjective people's critique is. And now I think I realize in my older years that everything comes from a place of what they see and what they feel, and it's not always objective, it's subjective.
Yeah. And if you're being authentic, if you're being real as an artist and you're writing from a genuine place and you're trying to connect with people, then the best way to do that is to be yourself.
I think I've realised this too, and actually I've gone through this big rebrand. So I changed all of my branding over to Ian's Tracks. I used to go under Markx, which was just, I don't know, I just liked that name. When I left the office job, I thought, oh, I'll be Ian Markx from now on because it's kind of a bit punchy and kind of stands out a bit more. And then over time, when I realized what I was actually doing and, writing music, traveling, singing in a wedding band, doing retreats, I was like, what is this? It's music and travel all together. So it's like tracks, and it's like leaning into the thing that, I had a real struggle to think, should I rebrand and do this? But then I thought, that's actually who I am. It tells you everything you need to know within 2 words. For me now going forward, I feel like I'm actually starting again.
Yeah.
In a really kind of positive way, but I'm sort of learning to kind of how can all of these things fit together a bit better.
Yeah.
How can I, arrive at a wedding gig, but still as an artist and as a performer. And even though I'm singing covers, I'm still my brand and representing that. And I think I've realized now that my wedding clients will probably want to support my original music. I'm starting to be like, oh, hold on a minute. I need to now connect with them after my gigs and make sure that I talk to them and befriend them and do all of these things, because actually I've been invested in them. They're going to want to be invested in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Anna, it's been an absolute joy. And I love not being in the interviewer's seat. That's kind of quite cool. Although it's kind of quite scary not knowing what you're going to ask me next. Thank you for listening to the Wanderers podcast with my lovely guest host, Anna Howie.
Yes.
Drum roll.
Yeah, that all went swimmingly well. You know what you're talking about.